Uh, so I'll begin with my journey. So this was few years back. I used to be very active in sports. I would play a lot of sport. I would do Pilates. I would run. I would do gymming, etc. But gradually I started developing knee pain, and it became so difficult for me that I was barely able to climb stairs or even run. So I had to go to the doctor. And when I went to the doctor put me on calcium tablets and also asked me to consume more protein and calcium in the form of eggs and milk, which I did. Although I was not very convinced because, I was always a vegetarian and I used to consume a lot of dairy and eggs anyways. But I still went ahead and tried it because I was very keen to get back to my active routine. So after a few months, deteriorated further. My pain aggravated, and I was not able to do even the simple things that I was able to do even before I started this medication. So that is when I spoke to Tessin, my wife. Tessin had been with Sharan for a few years. She had reversed her diabetes. She had lost about 12 kgs of weight. And also she was doing a lot of workout. So I was like, I am the one who's consuming all the protein and calcium in the world, and she is I'm the one who's consuming all the protein and calcium in the world, and she is the one who's getting fitter. So I had a detailed interaction with her, and she had always been telling me about the diet she follows, which was primarily plant based. But I was not convinced. I had seen so much on TV, so many ads that we need milk for calcium, we need eggs for protein, etc. So I was not really convinced. But then she suggested that I go and listen to a talk by Dr. Nandita Shah, which I did because I had nothing to lose. I was anyways not able to do much. And I think that really changed my mind. I learned so much about nutrition and how nutrition affects our health that my life has totally changed after that. And I decided to do a little more research on these two nutrients. And maybe about 8-9 months of changing my diet, I got back to my routine, and I started not only running, jogging, but I also started martial arts. So for the last 14 months I've been doing martial arts. And martial arts is a impact sport. So you need to have strong bones, you need to have strong muscles. Imagine the kind of stress that the knees would have or the elbows would have when you have that kind of kicking and punching going on. And I'm totally surprised, that, after not having any sort of eggs or dairy, I'm able to do so much and I am feeling stronger and fitter. Okay, so that was my background briefly. Now let us get into the nutrients that we are going to cover today. So mainly there are two kinds of nutrients, macronutrients and micronutrients. So there are three macronutrients: proteins, that is the one we are going to talk about. Then there are fats and carbohydrates. So we'll talk a little bit about fats and carbohydrates also, because that's one category of nutrients. And when you have, when you take your protein from that particular food source, you also get fat and carbohydrates. So we'll talk a bit about all three, but mainly about protein. And micronutrients are something that we consume in very small proportion. So there are two micronutrients. One is mineral and second is vitamins. So there are 16 minerals and calcium is a mineral. So we'll talk about calcium. Now the food that we eat, majority of the weight of the food is water and macronutrients. Very small percentage is micronutrients. So this was the overview of the nutrients. Let's get into protein right away. What are proteins? So proteins are basically formed of amino acids, and our body can make most of the amino acids. There are about 20 amino acids that are needed to form proteins. But there are few amino acids that our body cannot make. Now these are called essential amino acids because that is something we need to get from an external source. Now this external source can be food, and you will be interested to know that there are people who get all their nutrients without consuming any food. So there's this gentleman called Elitome who doesn't eat anything at all, but he gets all his nutrients. But anyways, we are not going that route. So we'll talk about diet and what kind of foods are needed to get those 8 essential amino acids. I mean, if I ask you, why do we need proteins? I'm sure a lot of you would say, even I used to say this, that we need protein for muscles. Now, that is not necessarily true. What we really need protein for is growth. So when we are growing up during our younger days, that is the time we need maximum amount of protein. As we grow older, we don't really need that much protein. But if you look at this table, you will notice the irony. When we are babies, we get only 1.25 to 2.7% of protein from our mother's milk. That is the maximum we are supposed to have even during our growing up days. But what we do is when we become adults, we start consuming animal milk like cow's milk. So cow's milk has got 3 times more protein than our mother's milk. So as we grow older, our consumption of protein should lessen, but in fact it is increasing, which is sort of going against nature. We are going against nature. So nature is telling us very clearly that this is what you should have, but we are contradicting it and we are doing something else. So we really need proteins for growth. That is one. And please keep this word in mind, growth, because growth also is a disease. There's a disease which is because of growth, which we'll cover a little later in the presentation. And the second need for protein is repair. So this is for people who work out mainly. So when you work out, all the different muscle groups, whether it's the legs or, whether it is hamstring or calf or your biceps or shoulder or core muscles, back muscle, shoulder muscles, all these muscles, they break down and then they need nutrition. So we need to provide the nutrition to these muscles and rest so that they can heal and recover and get stronger, and we are ready for next round of workout. So these are the two key roles of protein. One is growth and second is repair. Now, what are the dietary sources of protein? Like I said, there are 8 amino acids that we need to get through diet. Now, there are 2 dietary sources through which we can get protein. One is animal sources. Now, this is interesting. When I ask somebody what are the animal sources of protein, people would mostly say it is chicken, eggs, fish. Some will say eggs, some will not say eggs because some think eggs are vegetarian. Even I used to think eggs are vegetarian, but they will not name milk. Now, milk is also an animal source of protein. So whether it is a vegetarian or a non-vegetarian, they rely on animal source of protein. So for a body, the distinction is pretty simple. For a body, it is just one clear distinction whether the source is animal or plant. So if it is milk, it is an animal source. So the category of vegetarian and non-vegetarian falls on the same side. So all the diseases that you see vegetarians and non-vegetarians get are similar. So these are basically the animal sources from which you can get protein. The plant sources are totally different. Plant sources are all the natural foods that we consume, all the fruits in the world, all the vegetables, all the legumes, nuts, seeds. Seeds are very high in protein. So these are the plant sources of protein, which everybody can have, including vegetarians and non-vegetarians. Okay, let's do a quick survey. I'd like to see out of whoever is participating today in the session, what is your primary source of protein? You can type in your answers, whether it is animal source or plant source. I'd like to quickly have a look at what you guys are currently doing. Okay, I see a lot of plant and a lot of animal. Has this changed in the last few days, or you have always been plant? So if it is always plant, that is fantastic. Okay, great. So I see a lot of plant, but anyways, we'll cover both. We'll have a look at animal as well as plant. So thank you for your answers. Okay, so before we get into 2 sources, let us spend a couple of minutes with this gentleman. I call him Mr. Homo sapien. Homo sapien is the wise man. Now you see, this is a human body, of course. You see the red lines and you see the blue lines, right? So the red lines are the arteries which run through the entire body. They carry nutritious blood, the oxygenated blood to different parts of the body. And the blue lines carry the deoxygenated blood back to the heart so that it can be again refilled with nutrition. Now imagine what would be the length of these arteries. Some of you would know, but the length of the arteries is about 1 lakh kilometers. And do you know how many times the heart pumps? to ensure that the blood reaches to all parts of the body, the heart pumps between 90,000 to 1 lakh times in a day. So this is extremely important for us to understand, because this has an impact on everything. It has an impact on our overall health. It also has an impact on our muscle growth if we are looking to, grow muscles. Because this session is on protein, I'm sure a lot of you would want to also do more workout and grow muscles. So consider this red line as the highway. Okay, this is the highway, and the blood in it is the mode of transport, and the nutrients it carries is the cargo. So you need to ensure that your highway is clean, so that the blood and the nutrition reaches to all parts of the body. Now I'll give you an example. Now your legs, for example, if you're working out your legs, right, and your muscles break down, your legs need the nutrition, so the blood has to flow to the legs. However, if your highway, that is your arteries, are not clean, then the blood will not reach there. If your arteries are blocked, the blood will not reach there. Your muscles will not grow, or your muscles will not repair. Similarly, if you are doing arms, same thing will happen there. Or secondly, if you are not consuming good enough nutrients, then the nutrients that your arteries carry will do more harm rather than good. So it's very important that we keep our arteries clean, and also we consume good nutrition if we want to develop muscles. Similarly, it is also important for overall health. Why I'm talking about overall health is because, if somebody has a severe health condition, they will obviously not be able to do basic things right. So it's important that our overall health also remains fine. So for example, if the arteries that go to your heart, if they are blocked, then you have heart problems. If the arteries that are going to the kidney are blocked, you have kidney problem. If the arteries that are going to the eyes, those are very narrow vessels that go to the eyes. So if those vessels are blocked, then you can have things like glaucoma, or you can have things like cataract. So like the objective of showing this slide is to emphasize on how important it is for overall health to keep these arteries clean and our nutrition, intake proper. Okay, so let us look at the 7 main characteristics of animal protein. We'll begin with animal protein. Okay, one is animal protein is acidic. Now we all know that our body is alkaline. So when we put acid in our body, that doesn't go with the nature of our body. The environment in the body turns acidic. And what it does is our body tries to go back to the alkaline stage. And when it tries to go back to alkaline stage, it needs to extract nutrients from various parts of our body. So it would extract ammonia from your muscles. So in order to become alkaline, it will extract ammonia and it will weaken your muscles. So your muscles will further break down. So consuming animal protein can be counterproductive actually. Similarly, for the bones, it will extract calcium from the bones again to neutralize. So it will actually weaken your bones as well. So animal protein can be very bad, in fact, for your bones and muscles. It can have other problems like gout. Gout, as you all know, is very similar to arthritis. It is because of excess acid in our body, and animal protein is acid. So it can create these complications. And in order to digest these heavy foods, animal foods, our body has to release a lot of acid, stomach acid, and that can cause damage to your digestive tract and give you ulcers. So this is one of the biggest problems of animal protein consumption. Okay, now second is like I said, although I'm covering protein, but I'll talk a little bit about fat and cholesterol, because the animal foods we consume have a lot of fat and cholesterol. So when you consume this fat and cholesterol or animal foods, you will see the test tube on the right, where the plasma, this is a blood sample taken from somebody who had consumed a non-veg high protein food, and this was drawn 2 hours after he had consumed the food. If you see how thick the blood has become, this is all fat and cholesterol in his blood, and this is the plasma which is all showing that. The one on the left is totally clear, it's almost transparent, and this is the one somebody who had consumed plant protein. So like I told you about that highway, the arteries and veins, imagine if this blood on the right has to go through the entire body of 1 lakh kilometer long arteries, how much pressure your heart would have to give to pump this heavy fuel to different parts of the body. So the nutrition would reach late. It may not even reach. It may create plaques in your body. So it would sort of, hinder your muscle growth and recovery. Whereas the blood on the left is so fluid, it is so smooth that it will smoothly flow and it will enable your recovery. So this is another important aspect of consuming animal food vis-a-vis plant food. Okay, so this is a comparison. I just wanted to show you all, how much cholesterol animal protein has. So our liver produces its own cholesterol. Every animal produces its own cholesterol, including us humans. We don't need to get dietary cholesterol. And if you see, plants have zero cholesterol, so they are not doing any damage to you. We don't at all need all the cholesterol that is there in animal products. And whatever fats we need, we have enough sources of fats. I'm sure, a lot of the earlier presentations, people have mentioned that we are supposed to consume 10 nuts in a day. The reason is that it has got fat. So if we want our fat, we can get it from various sources like nuts, avocado, coconut, etc. We don't need to consume excess fat. It is absolutely bad for our arteries and veins. Okay, the next is, now fine, we have had a lot of dairy or eggs or animal protein in our life and our arteries are clogged. So what do we do about it? We need to clean those arteries so that we can get back our health, we can get back our muscles. But if we keep on consuming animal food, what we are doing? We are going on adding more plaque in our vessels and we are not even cleaning it because there is no fiber. So there is no fiber, there is no cleaning. Fiber works like a broom. It's like a jhadu. It cleans your arteries up. Whenever it goes in your arteries, it would suck out all the toxins and all the fat and clean your arteries. So your arteries will become absolutely clean. Second is, because animal protein does not have fiber, then you would tend to eat more. If you eat more, obviously you will not feel full because there is no fiber. When you eat more, you will have other problems of excess consumption of protein. And like I said earlier, protein is growth. If you eat more, you will have problems related to excess protein. And obviously, you will become, the chances that somebody will become obese. When you become obese, that has a different set of problems. This is one of the most important points. Animal protein promotes growth or animal protein promotes cancer. So this was one of the largest studies ever done, and it was done in China. I know China has been in news a lot for good and bad, but this was again done in China. And this study was done over a period of 20 years where even humans were involved. So this study has, sort of proved how nutrition affects our health, including cancer. So it was conclusively proved that animal protein causes cancer, and I'll show you how. So there are three stages of cancer. First is first is we need to get cancer cells in our body. So how do you get cancer cells in your body? If we consume any carcinogenic foods, now there are pesticides in food. So when we eat vegetables, fruits, which are not organic, right? So they have pesticides in it. So these pesticides can be highly carcinogenic, cancer causing. So when we eat those, or when we eat packaged foods have preservatives. So these foods have chemicals in it. So when we eat those foods, we are putting in carcinogenic foods in our body. And when that happens, cancer cells grow in our body. So we get our cancer cells activated. They don't really grow, but they get activated. So the first stage has happened. The key has been put in the car. The start of cancer has begun. So that's the first stage. But nothing happens unless you provide an environment for that cancer to grow. If you leave it there, nothing will happen. Nobody will get cancer. Only people who give the environment for cancer to grow will get cancer. Now, what is the environment? So in this study, this was what was established. So cancer grows, like I said, in that environment. This environment is animal protein. So the studies they did was they ingested high amount of cancer containing carcinogenic material inside the body, but the animal protein content was low and there was no cancer growth. So this is very important to know. Even if we have high cancer cells in our body, but we are not feeding it with animal protein, we will not get cancer. In the contrary, even if you have a small amount of carcinogen in your body, but you are consuming high amount of animal protein, there is cancer growth. And this was done over 20 years. So there is, good enough proof that, this is something which we should rely on. And the animal protein that was used, a lot of it was milk protein, casein. Now, milk has two proteins, whey and casein. 80-85% of protein in milk is casein protein. So when we are consuming milk, we are consuming animal protein, which is highly cancerous. And once cancer starts growing, then it is difficult to control that. Obviously, there are a lot of stories we heard, such an inspiring story by Jayashree yesterday. So there are different ways of curing cancer, but why we reach that stage in the first place? Now, same experiment was done using plant proteins. So if the carcinogen is high and plant protein is low, there is no cancer growth. And when the carcinogen is low but plant protein is high, still no cancer growth. So it is okay if we consume high animal protein, but we would not consume high animal protein. Why? Because plant proteins have fiber. So that will prevent us from eating more. So anyway, even if we consume high, it doesn't do any harm as far as cancer is concerned, but we will not consume higher because of, it containing fiber, and we'll be full pretty fast. And once the cancer grows, then like I said, that's a third stage progression of cancer in the body. And if anybody is interested in reading this book, or it is also available in Audible, you can have a look at this book. It's a fantastic, it's a bit long, it's a big book, but then still, you can pick and choose the sections that are relevant to you. It is written by Dr. T. Colin Campbell, and I think this Thomas M. Campbell is his son, perhaps. So these two gentlemen have written this book. Okay, next. Animal proteins have stress hormones. Now imagine if you're happy, what kind of vibrations you get in your body, right? The feeling that you get in your body is very different when you're happy. Whereas when you're stressed, you have a very different kind of feeling in your body. Those are the stress hormones that are there in your body. So when an animal is being slaughtered for consumption, can you imagine the kind of stress that animal goes through and the kind of hormones his body releases, the animal's body releases? Now, all those hormones come into us through the meat we eat. And those hormones create a lot of disruptions in our body, a lot of hormonal diseases in our body, and cancer in our body. Similarly, when a mother cow is being milked, she knows that the milk is not going to her baby. She is also so stressed. And when we drink that milk, all those stress hormones come in us. So animal protein has a lot of stress hormones. That is why I personally think that our lives have become very stressful. We are becoming, agitated. We are getting angry much faster. This could be one of the big reasons in my view. Okay, next is animal protein slows down recovery. The reason is very simple. I think I covered this earlier. It slows down recovery because it blocks our arteries and it prevents the blood from reaching our muscles. And it again, anyways, extracts ammonia from our muscles. So it further breaks down our muscles. And animal protein is very heavy to digest. It takes about 70% of our body's energy to digest. So whenever we eat any heavy food, animal protein food, we obviously, we feel very lazy and we want to sleep because our body's energy is going in digestion. So how will your body recover and how would you be ready for the next workout? It will take very long for your body to recover. I mean, I'm sure you'll be able to guess, one of the reasons why a lot of people don't come out and say that, they are going plant-based, because a lot of these industries, whether it is the dairy industry or the egg industry or the meat industry, they are big sponsors of all the sports, whether it is Cadbury's or Amul, they're all big sponsors of all the sports. So these athletes, they cannot really openly come out and, criticize something because their federations get a lot of money out of it. So it's not easy for them to really, criticize something like this. But still, I mean, it's highly commendable that, leading sports persons like Sunil Chetri and Virat Kohli have all, come out openly to announce that they are plant-based because of the benefits that they are seeing. Okay, now again on the same point, I would like to cover this. I really love this part. So inside our arteries, there are some things called as endothelial cells. Now these are magical cells. So when we are young, the length of these cells in our body is almost, as long as 8 to 10 tennis courts. So that is the length of these cells in our body. And the job of these cells is to direct the nutrition to the part of the muscle or the organ which needs protein or nutrition. That's the job of the cell. But what we do is when we eat unhealthy food, acidic food, or what can I say, food high in fat and cholesterol, these cells get damaged, and this is how the cells look like. So by the time we reach the age of 40, 50, 60 beyond, our endothelial cells are damaged and they cannot do the job. We only have cells like about one tennis court or two tennis court length. Then these cells cannot do the job, and the nutrition cannot reach the muscle group that needs the nutrition. So that is why animal protein slows down the recovery, because these endothelial cells are damaged. Next is animal protein causes inflammation. Now, what animal protein does is it damages our tissues and muscles and creates inflammation in the muscles. So that can also lead to a lot of other issues. This is mainly because the protein is highly acidic in nature. Okay, so that was on the animal protein bit. Let us quickly recap what are the main highlights of animal protein consumption. First is, like I said, it is acidic in nature. Second is it has excess fat and cholesterol. It has absolutely no fiber. It promotes cancer. This, in my view, is a very, very powerful point. It has stress hormones, and it hinders recovery, and it leads to inflammation. So it's a quick recap of the consumption of animal protein. Now let's come to plant protein. So what is plant protein? Plant protein is exactly opposite of animal protein. So I won't spend too much time on this. So plant protein is alkaline and our body is alkaline. So that perfectly matches with our body. So absolutely no problem there. It has got zero cholesterol like we saw, and it has got minimal fat. It is up to us how much fat we want to consume from plant protein. We can do that. We have multiple options like we discussed earlier. It is full of fiber. So it cleans up our arteries and we don't overeat. That's another big advantage. And as we saw in the China study, even if we consume higher amounts of plant protein, there is no cancer growth. So that's an amazing additional point. There are obviously no stress hormones. You're not killing anything. The another benefit of plant protein is that plant proteins are packed with antioxidants, vitamins, and minerals, and it enables our faster recovery. And the best part of plant protein is how much damage you have done to your endothelial cells inside the arteries, the magical cells that I talked about. Once you start consuming plant protein, endothelial cells start getting repaired and they can even come back. You can get your tennis courts back and your nutrition can again reach where it is supposed to reach. So that's the best part of consuming plant proteins. So some of you may be worried as to where will you get your plant protein, right? So there are thousands of sources. If you look at seeds, they have got the maximum amount of plant protein rather. So there are seeds, there are nuts, there are lentils, all the vegetables, all the fruits have protein. And like I said earlier, protein is growth. We don't really need too much of protein. Whatever protein we get from these sources is more than enough for us. And here is a comparison. Now our humble little chickpea, here you see on the plant side, our humble little chickpea has got more protein than anything else, whether it is animal or plant. And so many other plant-based sources have so much of protein. Now the thing is that, a lot of these companies that sell these animal-based foods, they do it as marketing, and the kind of statistics they give, those could be quite misleading. Nobody would ever promote chickpea or almonds because there's no money in that, right? But if you see, there's so much of protein in all of this, we don't really need to resort to consuming animal protein, which is actually doing more harm to us than good. And here are some facts. 1 cup of cooked lentil is equal to 3 eggs. That much protein it can give you. Not many people in India would eat steak, but still, broccoli will give you more protein per calorie than steak. And spinach is about equal to chicken and fish. So there's no advantage or disadvantage in consuming, animal protein. You can easily have all your protein from the plants. And here are some interesting facts about plant protein. Perhaps you all know, but all the protein is produced by plants. Animals do not produce any protein at all. Whatever protein animals give us, they get from the plants. So they eat the plants and then they get the protein, and then we eat animals and we get protein. So they are a second-hand source of protein. And it is a very inefficient way of consuming protein because animals need to consume 6 times more protein than they can actually provide us. So for example, if an animal eats 6 grams of protein and we eat the animal, we only get 1 gram of protein when we can actually get it from the plant directly. So what are we doing? We are putting so much pressure on the environment, on the resources, because to grow that animal, to feed that animal, we'll have to feed him so much more protein so that we can get 1 gram of protein. So we are damaging the environment. You have seen how animal agriculture has, COVID is one example, like, consuming animals has created viruses, it has created bird flu in the past, it has created swine flu in the past, it gives us diabetes, it gives us cancer, and it is so bad for our environment. Like, if somebody like you or me, we want to be healthy, we don't want to be healthy only for ourselves, right? We want the entire environment to be healthy. And the animal agriculture industry, it actually is one of the biggest pollution causing industries in the world. It gives more pollution than the entire transportation sector, which includes all the road, airlines, trains, ships, etc. So it is a very polluting industry. So here are some myths about protein, which I hope I've been able to clear. So animal protein is not the best source. In my view, definitely it is not the best source. And I'm sure some of you will agree with me. Eating more is better, not at all. We saw the China study, what it can do to us. Now, protein deficiency. Now, this is something some people say that, they have protein deficiency. Now, there's actually nothing called as protein deficiency. There are only in few cases like severe malnutrition, somebody can get protein deficiency. And it has a word called kwashiorkor. So only when somebody is severely malnourished, they will get protein deficiency, or they have a kidney disease. Only then they can get protein deficiency. Otherwise, nobody gets protein deficiency ever. And people who go to the gym or exercise need animal protein. Absolutely wrong. Any kind of protein will do the same job for you. Why don't we opt for a healthier plant protein rather than go for animal protein? Now, these are some of the world famous sports persons like Novak Djokovic, who's world number one tennis player, Serena Williams, world number one tennis player, Virat Kohli, our captain. They have access to the world's best nutritionists, doctors, trainers. If these guys are following plant protein and seeing better results, what further endorsement do we all need for consuming, plant protein? And if somebody who's looking to build muscle, this guy Patrick is the world's strongest man. The second guy, Delgado, he has won world bodybuilding championships. All of these muscles they got by consuming plant protein. The mixed martial arts fighter Nate Diaz. So this is interesting. He had a fight with this guy, Conor McGregor. So Conor McGregor was a non-vegetarian and Nate Diaz was a vegan, plant-based. So in the press conference before the fight, Conor McGregor was making good fun of Nate Diaz that, what are you eating? Are you going to fight me with eating plants? But Nate Diaz upset Conor McGregor to win the world championships. And this was one of the biggest upsets ever. And it was sort of being, promoted as a fight between a plant-based athlete and a non-vegetarian athlete, which Nate Diaz, of course, won, who was plant-based. And our film stars, so many of them, Indian and abroad, they are all on plants. And what about our friends from the animal community? So the fastest, the strongest, and the biggest, where do you think they get their protein from? They get their protein from all the natural sources, the plants. They don't need to consume any animals for their protein. Okay, now I know all of you are interested in protein and calcium, so I would like to recommend some documentaries for you all. There's this documentary called The Game Changers, which I'm sure our earlier speakers have also mentioned. So you can watch this. And there are two other very good documentaries which you should all watch, Fox Over Knives and What the Health. They talk about nutrition and health. Because we are talking about protein, calcium, we are obviously, all of us are very health conscious. We are attending this 7-day health summit. So I would really recommend all of you to watch these three. So now if somebody asks you, where do you get your protein from? I hope you'll have all the answers, right? Okay, now let's go to the second part, calcium. Now, what is calcium? Like I said, calcium is a micronutrient. It is one of the minerals. So there are 16 minerals and calcium is one of them. Now, these micronutrients, they do not provide us any calories or energy, but they play a very important role. They help to release the energy from proteins, fats, and carbohydrates. So that's a very key role they perform. Why do we need calcium? One obviously is for maintaining our bone strength. Second is it enables the blood to clot. And third is it helps our heart to beat. Now, calcium helps in muscle contraction. Now, heart is a muscle. So for a heart to beat, it needs to be contracted and expand. It needs to contract and expand. So that is the role that calcium plays. It enables the heart to contract as a muscle. How much calcium do we really need? So, in Sharan and including me, we don't really count the proteins or calciums or vitamins that we need to take. I never count how much proteins I need. Similarly, we never count how much calcium we need. But just to give you an idea, the amount of calcium we need in a day is just 1 gram. That's it, just 1 gram of calcium. It's all marketing that you need to have milk, you need to have this, you need to have that. For calcium, you need so much calcium. It's only 1 gram of calcium that we need in a day. So what are the dietary sources? One obvious is milk, which all vegetarians and non-vegetarians consume. And we know what milk does, right? It extracts calcium from our body because body becomes acidic when we consume milk. So it will extract calcium from the bones and weaken the bones. And there's a lot of research. So the countries that consume maximum amount of dairy are the countries that have maximum amount of bone fractures and also osteoporosis. Now, I can give you some examples. Like Sharan has these 21-day programs, and during these 21-day programs, there are people who come with a walking stick and they walk like this and they go back jogging. There are people who come who cannot climb stairs, and by the end of the program, they are trekking. So these are some live cases that Sharan has seen during the 21-day programs just by making a shift from animal source to plant source within 3 weeks. That's the kind of amazing results that this kind of diet can produce. So where is the calcium in plant-based foods? If you see, cow's milk just has 120 mg. It is good amount of calcium. The problem is it will leach calcium out of your bones also. So the net effect of cow's milk is far lesser. If you look at sesame seeds has 10 times more calcium. Our humble little chickpea also has a lot of calcium. Amaranth has calcium. Tofu has calcium. The recipe that we had done earlier in the week, the tofu scramble, that has protein and calcium. Apricots have calcium. So many things have calcium. And like I said, you don't need too much of calcium, just 1 gram in a day. And anyways, our kidneys, they recycle a lot of calcium, 300 to 400 milligrams, they recycle. There are some other calcium sources like blackberries, oranges, broccoli, olives, kidney beans, etc. So there are a lot of sources for calcium. So what do calcium supplements do? Now, I'm fortunate that, having started taking calcium supplements, I stopped it pretty soon because one of the biggest problem of consuming calcium is that it calcifies our arteries. It creates plaque in our arteries. It creates blockages in our arteries. So what was happening in my case is that when I was consuming milk, it was blocking my artery to the knee. And that is why I was getting knee pain. I was not able to do much. When I stopped consuming and I went plant-based, my arteries cleaned up and my knee became stronger. And then I was able to do a lot more. But these arteries in the heart can also get calcified, and then there's an increased risk of heart attack. So if somebody who has heart problems, they're consuming a lot of calcium, animal calcium, then obviously they will increase the risk of heart problems. And people who already have a history of kidney stones, they can have an increased risk of kidney stones. Okay, now this is again very important. So just getting calcium is not enough. We need to have vitamin D also for absorption of calcium. And a lot of us are vitamin D deficient because we only get it from sun. And hardly any one of us is in the sun, especially now during this lockdown period. So it's very important that all of us keep a check on our vitamin D levels and ensure that our vitamin D is, to the optimal level. If that is the case, then calcium absorption also takes place. And having less vitamin D has its own sets of problems. Like, you can get things like cancer as well if vitamin D is low. Okay, here are some interesting facts about calcium. So like protein, our bodies cannot produce calcium. Our bodies, of course, can produce some bit of protein, but not all. But our bodies cannot produce calcium. 99% of calcium is for our bones and teeth. And like I said, our kidneys recycle 300 to 400 mg of calcium. It is reused. So we don't need to consume that much. Whatever you had earlier will also get reused. And all minerals, including calcium, are coming from the soil. So when these plants get it from the soil, we eat the plants and we get these minerals. Okay, some myths that I hope to have addressed. One is milk gives calcium strong bones, which in my view is totally wrong. And we need calcium supplements. I don't think anybody needs calcium supplements. Our food has got enough calcium in it. So yeah, so that was about calcium. Now I'll just give you an idea of, what all I try to eat in a day, not everything every day, but this is what I try to do, especially on the days I work out. So morning starts with a green smoothie. So I can even have 2-3 glasses of green smoothie, and then I have fruits. For my workout, I need some carbs. So I either have a beetroot juice or a beetroot lemon juice, or I eat a sweet potato. So that gives me the necessary carbohydrates for the workout. After the workout, I can have a tofu scramble or chickpea scramble or sprouts, something like that. And I definitely ensure that I have raw vegetables and salads every day. If not raw, then steamed vegetable. And something very interesting I have discovered is salad smoothie. So for days where you don't feel like eating salads, what I do is I take whatever salads of my choice and I add lemon or Indian gooseberry, the amla to it, black pepper, ginger, and make it tasty. And then I drink it like a green smoothie, and I can even have 2 glasses of it. I like it. Even you can also try if you wish to try. And then of course, you can have some seeds if you're looking to get some protein.